So if my kid comes up to me and asks me, "Mom, tell me a story," I know what she means by that. You know what they mean by that. But if they come to me and ask me, "What is a story?" you might pause for a second and be like, "You know what? I'm not really sure." Hi everyone, and welcome to Write That Script. I'm so excited to start this journey with you into storytelling and screenwriting and TV writing. And today I want to jump right into it and start at the very, very beginning and talk about story. Specifically, what is a story? We grew up hearing stories, asking our parents to tell us stories. It's all around us all the time. So if my kid comes up to me and asks me, "Mom, tell me a story," I know what she means by that. You know what they mean by that. But if they come to me and ask me, "What is a story?" you might pause for a second and be like, "You know what? I'm not really sure." So my goal today is to get story from that instinctive place that we all have. We know instinctively what stories are, and take it to an intellectual place. So we understand the concept of story. And in that way, when we start thinking about our own projects, we can start from the very beginning and understand if we actually have a story, if our idea fits into this mold of story. And this works for everything. It works for screenwriting, it works for novel writing, it works for your YouTube videos. Anytime there's any kind of storytelling involved, it's really important for us to have certain elements in this idea of ours. Let's start with a definition. By the way, all the teaching material that you'll see here on screen, you will find a link to download in the description of the video. So let's start with this definition right here. Story is a cause and consequence, chronological sequence of events that can be told through the action of characters. That is a mouthful, is it not? So let's break down each of these specific elements. And that way we'll have a full understanding of what a story is. So let's start with cause and consequence. This means that each scene or each moment in your story is a consequence of what happened previously. This has two ramifications. One is logical cause and consequence. One thing logically leads to another. Someone throws a banana peel on the floor, your character slips on it, your character falls, your character hurts themselves. That's a logical cause and consequence idea. I think there's also this other element that's really important that sometimes is neglected when we are teaching storytelling, which is emotional cause and consequence. As humans, we are both logical and emotional human beings, and both of these forces inform how we're going to act on a day-by-day basis. And that's the same thing in storytelling. So let's use the same example of the banana peel. Someone throws a banana peel on the ground, your character slips on the banana peel, your character is humiliated for falling in public and ruining their favorite shirt, and then they're rude to their mom, and then they feel really bad that they were rude to their mom. The emotion of one scene carries on to the next, and that might inform how your character is behaving. So that's the idea of cause and consequence, and I hope that is clear. Story is a cause and consequence, chronological sequence of events. So let's hone in on this idea of chronological. That is around the concept of time, right? So let's think about time in storytelling. What does that mean? It means a few different things. One is that there is a passage of time in stories. Usually things don't happen within a moment. They happen over time. And as a viewer or as a reader or whoever is experiencing the story, we can kind of understand what that timeline is. We might not know the exact number of days or hours or minutes, but we have an overall feeling of how much time has passed in this story, which might not coincide with the amount of time that you spent telling that story, right? So a very basic example is the movie 127 Hours. The movie is 90 minutes long, 100 minutes long, but it tells the story that goes over 127 hours, right? So we have that understanding as a viewer or as a reader or however you're experiencing this story. That will happen even if you don't show your events in chronological order. So Pulp Fiction, for example, is told out of chronological order. But as a viewer, we are able to piece together what the order of those events was in chronological order. And just a little parenthesis here, that is where the difference between story and plot becomes really important. And we'll talk about that in a different video. So put a pin on that for now, and let's just understand this idea of time. So however you experience your story, by the end of it, there has been a passage of time. You understand more or less how much time has passed. And even if the events aren't depicted in chronological order, we are able to do that in our minds. We are able to interpret that and put them in chronological order. So sequence of events, we've already uncovered a little bit of this when we talked about cause and consequence. But sequence of events means that things happen and things keep happening. So an event is a thing that happened. In storytelling land, we call those beats, like the beats of a story. Every time something happens in your story, that's a story beat. So when we talk about sequence of events, an event is a thing that happens, and a story is composed by a sequence of events. So a single event might not be a full story. A single event might be the start of your story. It might be the circumstance in which we find our characters, but that might not necessarily tell a whole story. So let's think of this, right? An example is a pregnant woman's husband dies. That's an event. Is that a whole story? Let's think of it in terms of a sequence of events. And let's keep in mind what we've already learned about cause and consequence, okay? So a pregnant woman's husband dies. That's her first event. She then has to go through his things to get rid of them. That's the second event, right? It's a logical consequence of the first event. She discovers that he was involved in a drug dealing scheme and that he was actually killed by this dangerous drug dealer. That's her third event. She then takes revenge and kills the murderer. Fourth event, right? She might learn MMA and learn how to shoot a gun. All these things are a sequence of events, cause and consequence sequence of events. The last important thing is this idea of action of characters. So a story is told through the action of your character. That is a really, really important notion. And it might seem obvious, but let's think about this for a second, because this is a really important concept that will lay the foundation for good storytelling forever. So let's really, really hone in on this idea of action of characters. It doesn't only mean that your character does stuff. That is also what it means, but that's not only what it means. So let's look at this definition for a second of this specific element of storytelling. This means that your protagonist, who is your main character, and we will definitely talk about protagonists and antagonists in future videos. So subscribe if you like what you heard so far, so you can get the notification that this video has dropped. Your protagonist will be driving the action of the story in pursuit of a goal. That means that your protagonist, your main character, wants something. Wants and desires are a fundamental part of storytelling. I'm sure we can think of examples of stories that characters are wandering about and they might not have a specific goal. But for now, we're talking about what I like to call orthodoxy of storytelling. What are the basic, straightforward rules that we can learn to break later? But in order to break them, we must learn them. Characters want something. They have a desire. And that's what protagonist means. It's the one that wants something. So not only does your character want something, he's going to take action in order to achieve that goal, and he is going to have to overcome obstacles on the way. So when we're thinking of stories, we have to think in those terms. A character wants something. It's not going to be easy to get it. There will be obstacles along the way. So example, a pregnant woman loses her husband, discovers that he was killed. She does nothing, the end. That's not really a story, right? It's a passive character. It's a character that doesn't do anything in order to achieve her goal. So if her goal, let's say, is revenge, right? Our pregnant woman loses her husband, discovered he was killed, and plans an elaborate scheme to get her revenge. And the world has never seen anything that's articulate. And people are trying to get her and they're trying to stop her, but she will get her goal of revenge. That's this idea of character wants something and there are obstacles along the way. I hope this makes sense, and I hope that you have an understanding of what a story is right now. We will break down what obstacles are and what are different ways to think about our obstacles in the next video. If you like what you saw today, please subscribe, leave a comment. You can check out the website with all the teaching materials and more in the description of the video. And thank you so much.